Hey, Astro Guy. So this is a live view of the sun in white light, and I'm just here in my backyard. It's kind of convenient. I'm using a C8 telescope with a solar filter on it, and I pulled it up right in front of the garage, and then I closed the garage so that the garage door is right at the tip of my iPhone screen, which is connected to the telescope. Hey, Mac. Yeah, this is my very first time live streaming on YouTube, so I'm just doing a little test here. Tracking is pretty well. So I basically just set the telescope in the driveway, put the iPhone on the side of it to make sure that it was pointed as due north as I could, and then I slewed over to Uranus, which is on the right side of the meridian for the telescope. At first I tried Mercury, but then I would have to do a meridian flip to get to the sun because this is an equatorial mount. And so anyway, after I told the mount to go to Uranus, that started the tracking up. And then I just slewed over to the sun. And what you do to get to the sun, the simplest way is just to watch the shadow. And then you use the hand controller with the go-to mount to slew the telescope until the shadow is basically minimized. So you can see by the shadow that the telescope is pointed directly at the sun. So we've got some clouds here. Looks like we've got 2 sunspots on the sun today. We're going to lose it for a few seconds here before this cloud passes. So sunspots are caused by magnetic activity on the surface of the sun, and usually, a lot of the time anyway, they come in pairs. So you have one for each sort of dipole. Thanks, universe is in you. Nice view of the sun. It was until the clouds came. It's kind of funny is that when the sun goes away, I can see my reflection, and I can sort of wave because I'm using a 32 millimeter eyepiece here, so the top of the eyepiece actually sticks up over the top of the phone. I'm using a NextYZ mount, and so yeah, I can almost like wave to everyone over the top of my in my eyepiece reflection here. Max says, "Do you prefer the sun filter to be?" Oh, I lost it. I lost the chat. Let me see if I can bring that up here. Top chat. Okay. Do you prefer the sun filter to be on the eyepiece in front of the objective lens? Yeah, and actually, that's pretty much, I believe, the only safe way to do it. There are other options. I mean, there's a couple options. So there are eyepieces that do it, but generally there's a high risk there if something were sun's energy were to melt a piece of the eyepiece. You can damage your eyes pretty severely that way. But there's a lot of people that project the sun. If you don't have an eyepiece on the telescope at all and you just put a piece of paper behind it, some people have like a piece of paper on a stick, and that you can project an image of the sun that way onto the paper. And that again, that's generally with a solar filter over the objective lens as well. I believe for that setup. Gosh, there's a lot of ways to do it. But the most popular way again is just a solar filter over the objective lens. And usually you want to get one that's custom for your telescope. I made my own. There's on my old YouTube channel, just John Aaron Reed. There's one where I made my own out of like construction paper and Bader film, and I put it to some techno music, and it did pretty well in terms of how my old YouTube channel was. Anyway, looks like we've got about 30 seconds here until this cloud passes, and we'll get our sun back. I don't know if I can. Again, this is my first time doing YouTube live with me. So let's see if I can turn around here. Yeah, so here was my setup. The telescope, and I'll leave the phone on the telescope here. So Astro Guy says, are you going to be looking out for Mercury and Venus conjunction this month? Yeah, totally. I mean, I stargaze every night that it's clear, pretty much. And right now, I haven't told many people about this, but I'm working on a new book. It's called 110 Things to See with a Telescope. And basically what it does is it follows, each page is a Messier item. But what we're also doing is looking at all the items. So we're using the Messier items as sort of the staging ground for other things. So almost 2 a.m. here. Gonna see the sun in a few more hours. Yeah. And we've got a partial solar eclipse here that'll be visible on June 10th. So this is a little bit of a practice for that. It'll be partial from this location. I'm here in Nova Scotia, and it will be annular in northern Ontario, I think. And so you'll nowhere on Earth will it be a total solar eclipse that day, just because the moon is closer to apogee. It's too far away from the Earth to cover the whole disk of the sun. But it's still really great to live stream and get people talking about the sun. Astrogeist has got a partial solar eclipse in the UK here too. Yeah. We've also got the lunar eclipse on May 26th of this month, and that will be visible on, I believe, partially the west coast of North America, and then Hawaii, Australia, and maybe Asia, I think. Just going from memory here. And I know I first heard about that when Qantas was selling flights to nowhere to see the eclipse from the airplane, the lunar eclipse, which could be interesting. I wonder if they only sell seats on one side of the plane, or if they're going to go back and forth or in circles, just so everyone can get a view of that event. Fortunately, lunar eclipses last for much longer than a total solar eclipse event. Here, I'm going to pull the the garage door down so I don't blind myself here. Maybe I'll flip around. Tracking's not bad. I might adjust that a little bit. Again, it's not polar aligned or anything. I just set the telescope down and yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna go to bed. Good luck with the observation, John. Yeah, thank you. And we're back to clouds. Yeah, back to my. It's hard when the sun's out to sort of see the buttons. I'm trying to flip my screen again, but now I can't find where that is. There's chat. I don't know what magic wand does. Huh. The flip your screen around button is gone. Anyway, that's weird. Can I zoom in on Google? Oh, I can. That'll come in handy. We do have those two sunspots, and one of them has quite a bit of detail on it. Clouds are my worst nightmare for stargazing. Yeah, tell me about it. Because I do, I run the observatory at St. Mary's for the students there, and some of the semesters, I think out of like the 20 or 30 lab nights that we have, I probably had less than half a dozen nights on some semesters just because of clouds here. Fortunately, the way the observatory works from a science perspective here in Halifax, this is the Burt Gaffney Observatory, is that it's basically a robot. And so it has weather sensors on it that will tell it when the skies are clear. And so when the skies clear up, it will automatically, even if everyone's asleep, it'll wake up and do its scientific observations. And then if it clouds over, it'll go back to sleep. Oh, wait, there we go. There's my flip. Okay. Oh, now it's gone. Yeah. So, okay. Someone says, my son wants to make their own solar filter from beta film. Is it safe for extended viewing? Yeah, it's safe for extended viewing. The thing you just want to make sure is that you don't sort of screw up the process, because that would be very dangerous. So follow the instructions very clearly and make sure you have there's no risk that any sunlight at all will get past the filter. So what I did, I made pucks with a glass. You don't need to cover the whole objective lens with the beta film, but the whole objective lens needs to be covered. So I used a cup, and I made, the shape, and I cut out the circle of beta film, I believe, and then I covered the outside of it with double-sided tape, and then I made just a bigger disc of, not construction paper, like cardboard or something, and I put it on each side to lock it into that round shape. And then you sort of have to make a cone, which I did by wrapping poster board around, maybe 30 or 40 times. And with each lap with the poster board, I put a line of carpenter's glue, and that made this really solid. Oh, maybe do I have it here? Yeah. Yeah, so this is what I did. And I did around, it was a pair of astronomical binoculars that I used. And so I just kept going around and around and around the binoculars. And on each lap, I ran a bead of glue. And so this is like, it's solid as a rock. And so that's what I did. And the beta film was about 25 bucks. And that got me 2 of these, one for each lens of the binoculars. And they fit very snug. And that's because you don't want the wind to come and blow it off. Because again, if you screw this up, you go blind. So it's generally not recommended. I actually I talked about designing these when I did the book 50 Things to See with a Small Telescope, and there's solar observing in there. And before it was published, I had said, oh, here's how to build your own. And when I ran it by the Astronomical Society of the Pacific, who helped me with that book, they said, no, take that out and only recommend commercial solar filters. And that was for legal reasons. Okay. Yes. Someone says, oh, Astro Guy says, I think I'm using an app called Scope Nights for astronomy weather forecasting so I can plan my stargazing. Oh, the chat is gone. Yeah, I use atmospheric right now. Is my current favorite one. Although most of the time I just look out and I pretty much only stargaze from my backyard here. We're in a pretty serious lockdown here in Nova Scotia because COVID. We're not supposed to leave our town, or we're not supposed to go anywhere at all until our cases drop down to effectively 0 again. So, which is where they were until about 2 weeks ago. We were averaging less than 1 a day for a province of 1 million people, again, until like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I mostly just look outside for my weather, but if I'm serious about it, I'll use atmospheric, and that also has those little charts that show moonrise and moonrise and sunset, and so you'll know when there'll be like when it's astronomical twilight exactly. So like if you're imaging, you'll know exactly when to start your imaging because you'll know that's as dark as it's going to get for the night, and you can plan around the moon phase and all that really just at a glance. And again, that's atmospheric, and I think that's another free one. Ooh, there's the sun again, so I can flip around, and then I might. Okay, we're about centered on that. Let's try to zoom in. Ooh. Of course, I touch the screen and the chat shows up. Okay, go away, chat. I want to zoom in on that filter. Go away, chat. There we go. I feel like I'm saying Chad. Go away, Chad. Yeah. So here you have one of these sunspots here, and this one on the left has sort of your secondary sunspots there as well. Again, usually that's caused by magnetic dipoles on the surface, causing the two areas of the sun to do that. It's neat. When we were, one of the labs, I haven't done it in about 2 years at St. Mary's, was to measure sunspot diameters, and you would use a stopwatch and an eyepiece with a reticule in it, and you would start the stopwatch when the sort of the bullseye got to one side of the sunspot, and you stop it at the other, and then you could use. You're basically just using math to figure out how far did the sun move in that time, and you can figure out how distant the sun is, and you can figure out the diameter of the sunspot. The challenge was you actually had to use some information because the uncertainty of that calculation is fairly high. So we had to use some declination metrics from the Naval Observatory in the States, or whatever that system is they do for like very accurate timekeeping. And then I forget if we had to account for air mass as well, just to get a very accurate measurement of those sunspots. So kind of cool. And then should have the sun back in just a second, and I will move the telescope over and we'll see if we've got another sunspot just to the right of that one. I think this would be, if you weren't using mirror reversed scope, because this is a Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope. So Schmidt-Cassegrains do a mirror reverse of the image. So if you're using a different type of telescope, it would be the mirror reverse of this. But if you're using a Newtonian telescope, it'd be a 180 flip. So if you're trying to be sciencey about it, you got to keep track of what telescope you're using. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to I'm gonna pull the garage door down here so that I can see my screen, and we should be able to see that second sunspot there. Yeah, there it is. And now I didn't look up the number designation for these sunspots. every time one shows up, it gets a designation, which is probably some like number date combination, similar to comets or whatnot. I forget what the methodology is. So that's neat that, it looks like it doesn't switch cameras as I zoom in. So this is the iPhone 11 Max with the 3 cameras. And when you use the regular photo app, it switches cameras on you, which is really annoying if you're using, if it's connected to a telescope. And so generally I use an app called Nightcap and for my photos, and then that doesn't switch cameras on me. And it's a lot easier. The challenge that I've found using Nightcap is I haven't quite figured out then if I want to switch cameras, how do I go and do that? And switch it around again. You can see me hiding in the garage. Okay, now it's dim. Up with that. Yeah, so because an iPhone is one of the best ways to take images of the moon and, the sun, just like this, and the planets. And then you can use, either Registax on a computer or Linkios if you've got a Mac, and you can stack those in really clear images. What does the lack of sunspots, I lost my chat again, click, top chat. What does the lack of sunspots mean regarding the solar cycle, and how does it affect Earth? Yeah, it's been a while since I've really looked into there's the Marauder minimum, which was a time when there was very low solar activity, and that was, I believe, corresponded to low sunspot counts. So the sunspots have, I think it's an 11-year cycle. It's been a while since I looked at this. What is in my hair? Pieces of garage. Okay. Yeah, this garage door is very old. Yeah, so I forget what the correlation between solar output and sunspot count is, but the sunspots go on, I believe it's an 11-year cycle, I think. And so so we just got out of the minimum, and we're climbing into a period of more and more sunspots. But no, I just forget what the correlation is between, solar, flux, how much energy the sun is putting out, and the count of sunspots. So we don't really know what causes this cycle. The latest hypothesis, I don't think it's a theory yet, hypothesis is that there's a correlation between sunspots and tidal forces from the planets. So the planets, especially probably the heavier planets, pull on the gas in the sun and stir it up somehow. And so it seems like there's some sort of resonance between, or at least the hypothesis, again, not a theory yet. A theory, you'd be able to prove it, or you'd be able to make predictions based on it. But the hypothesis is that, that there's some resonance between the orbits of the planets and this 11-year sunspot cycle, how it's stirring up the gases on the surface of the sun. Maybe the gases are moving too much at the minimum, and it doesn't give the sunspots a chance to form. It doesn't get those magnetic dipoles lined up. There's too much friction there. I don't know. That's my hypothesis based on the hypothesis about the sunspots. So, yeah. So, let's see here. What else? I guess that's it for the chat. We've talked for 20 minutes here. That's pretty good for a first YouTube live for me, at least where I'm hosting it. I just got off my Moon at Noon show with the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. So we're having great fun with that show. So that's every Thursday at noon Eastern. And we're walking people through the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada's Explore the Moon program. And so that allows people, after they see 100 targets on the moon with their telescope, or I believe 15 or 20 targets with binoculars, you'll get a certificate. If you do the telescope version, you'll also get sent a pin. Now that certificate program, you can do it for fun, but only the members get. Members of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, which is $60 Canadian a year, I believe, for membership, only they'll get the certificate and pin. The Explore the Universe program, which was the show we hosted last year, is open to anyone, and the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, RASC, they'll send anyone who does that program a certificate and pin anywhere in the world. So that's a great gateway to get into astronomy. And basically, with that program, you observe, you have to observe half their targets in total. So I think there's maybe 100 targets, and you have to observe 50, but they're really, except for the double stars, they're really easy. And even the double stars are binocular level double stars. So you don't even need a telescope for that program. So you probably have to observe like 12 constellations, 12 stars, 10 double stars, 4 planets, something like that. The activity workbook that I wrote at the beginning of last year, the back page has the information on filling out the form to submit for the Explore the Universe program. And people use this is 50 things to see with a telescope activity workbook. And if you work through that workbook and you get about half the targets, or maybe even a third of the targets, you've probably more than got enough stargazing done to get that certificate and pin from the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. So a really great thing to do with kids or students in terms of a fun activity to do in your backyard. And again, you don't need a telescope. And most of it, you don't need binoculars either. Only double stars and stuff you would actually need binoculars to get. And some of the double stars you don't, like Mizar and Alcor. You don't need anything to see those. So those are 2 live shows. I put all of the Explore the Universe shows on my website, learntostargaze.com/shows. And so you can access them there and watch them one at a time if you're interested. Is Mars in the Sun's Goldilocks zone? I think it's on the outer edge. So a comment there. And but I mean, the Goldilocks zone is weird. So that's you're asking about the zone at which liquid water could form on a rocky planet around a star. So I think Venus is actually in the Goldilocks zone. But of course, Venus's atmosphere is too thick, and even if Mars was in the Goldilocks zone, its atmosphere is too thin. So Venus is going to be too hot, and Mars is going to be too cold. But of course, if you were in the upper atmosphere of Venus, I believe there's a zone where the atmospheric pressure and temperature is fairly similar to Earth. So if you had a big Venus Zeppelin or something, you could hypothetically, be in Venus's atmosphere. And some people, I don't know why, would suggest that you would do a Venus Zeppelin over a Mars colony. I think that's kind of silly. I think the Cloud City idea is pretty dangerous versus being on the surface of a planet that has regular day-night cycles, like Mars, a lot safer. So anyway, oh yes, Astro Guy. I'm going to find the Moon-Mercury conjunctions this evening, hoping for clear skies. Yeah, definitely. So Moon-Mercury conjunction. Mercury's kind of a lot of people, I bet, go through their whole life without overseeing Mercury, and that's kind of sad. So tonight's the night. So if you can find the moon it's about day 2 or 3 of the lunar cycle. So it's very young. It's probably only, some people measure it at hours at this point. So last night it was 26 hours old at sunset for us. So now it's, it'll be closer to 48 hours old. That's pretty young for a moon. So it'll still just be a sliver. And, hello. So still got half clouds there. And maybe I'll turn around again. You don't need to see me. You want to see the sun? Let me zoom back out here. Oh. All right. These comments are in the way. I can't unzoom. Doing my Carl Sagan accent here. Okay. Top chat. No chat. Hide chat. Okay. Autofocus. Here we go. I'm impressed that the tracking's been pretty good on this. Despite not actually aligning it. Yeah. It was perfectly sunny all day until I decided to do this. What I wouldn't mind doing, and I don't know if I have time I gotta go rescue my wife. I have 3 kids, and they're homeschooling right now, just inside the house. So, well, 2 of them are. One of them's too young. All right, show chat. Flip around. Okay, let me go back through some of these comments. I might get your books when I get my telescope on Christmas. I'll think about it. Yeah, definitely get my books. Are I'm really excited for this new one that is currently unannounced. Again, 110 things to see with a telescope, but the one that we're most proud of is definitely 50 things to see on the moon, because that's something that hasn't been done before, really simplifying that, because it's not lunar atlas. It literally just, I picked my favorite things to see on the moon. I observed the moon every night for 6 months, picked out my favorite things, and each page is dedicated to that particular target. So it only follows the first 14 days of the lunar cycle. So it vastly simplifies the lunar observing experience. And so that's the one we're most proud of. But 50 things to see with a telescope, definitely the most popular. See with a telescope is the most popular one today. And although in Canada, my wife's book, 50 Animals That Have Been to Space, started outselling all of mine. And I think because the schools are buying them up. And so she was dancing around the house last week after getting a royalty report from Format Publishing that, you know, her book is now the most popular. So, and we've actually, she's actually going to start doing some Learn to Stargaze videos coming up because I need to make those more fun. My wife has a degree in theater arts. And so we're gonna, after our kids are back in school, they're out of school right now because of the lockdown, and our youngest is back in daycare. Hopefully we'll get back to making YouTube videos full time for Learn to Stargaze. We did the first 50 videos for Learn to Stargaze, started last August, finished up with that first set of 50 in probably 3 or 4 months ago. And then we just started full time on this new stargazing book, which is going to be amazing. Really simplifying the stargazing experience at the next level. So after you finish all your beginner targets. So look for that. Hopefully in 2 months here, we'll get that out. And then I'll start a video series to support that, that new book, which is great. So I'm co-writing that with someone from the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. And it should be a winner. Astro Guy, always gotta go. Bye, bye, Astro Guy. Yeah, so I think this worked out pretty good. I'll have to do one of these YouTube live videos again. I tried IG live, and it was funny because nobody. I just looking at a blank screen and no one was there. So I'm like, well, that's kind of sad. Although most of my followers are on YouTube anyway, so YouTube right now is definitely the biggest platform. For Learn to Stargaze, second only to actual books, because the books, the 50 Things to See with a Telescope series is very popular. So, okay, it looks like in about 30 seconds here, we'll go back to the sun. We've got a big patch of blue sky coming out. You can't see. I don't want to move the phone because it is lined up perfectly with the telescope here and the sun. And so we'll get you back on the sun, and then I'll probably call it so I can go help help with the kids. I've got my dog here chewing on a bone, so you can probably hear that in the background. Yeah, again, any questions about space in general or telescopes? I've got 7 telescopes behind me. I wish you could see some of them. So I basically went, and I feel bad because there's a telescope shortage right now. And I went and bought all the used telescopes from B&H Photo, and I've been testing them because I get a lot of questions about telescopes, and you know, if I don't own it or haven't used it, I couldn't answer it. So I went and bought these used telescopes, you know, and the thing is I get them and then I fall in love with them. You know, every telescope has its own unique job. So even like the Power Seeker series telescope, which is astronomers or amateur astronomers generally consider the worst beginner telescope on the market. Like they run when they see someone, oh, I have an issue with my telescope. And they say it's a Power Seeker. They're like, no, it can't help you. So I did a 3 video series on that one just because so many people buy them. Power Seekers, like it's about $100, but they're so difficult to use. A lot of people just leave the hobby altogether when they buy them. So I bought it and I got it going. It took like a lot of time and effort, but I ended up loving it for the Explore the Moon program. And the reason is they don't want you using computerized scopes at all. And it's great for the moon, and it helps you sketch because it is an equatorial mount. So you're like sketching the moon, and then you turn a knob, and it centers the moon again. And then you do a sketch, and then you turn the knob, you know, a half turn, and it's centered again. Okay, back on the sun. let this come into focus. Come on, iPhone. Focus. Maybe when these clouds clear. All right. Oh, I can hear my kids having temper tantrums in there. Okay, I guess we're still 40 seconds away or so from this clear spot. Let me go back to the chat. Did I shut that down for good? Oh, is the image better through a Schmidt-Cassegrain or a refractor? Or is a Schmidt-Cassegrain considered a refractor? I think a Schmidt-Cassegrain is technically considered a type of reflector with a corrector on it. So not a refractor, but it does rotate, or it flips the image the same way, assuming you're using a diagonal. So a Schmidt-Cassegrain has the same performance generally as a high focal length refractor telescope. That was weird. I just lost signal for a second. Anyway, yeah, so which is better? So they say the Schmidt-Cassegrains have sort of magic pixie dust in them that makes the image extra contrasty. And I have noticed that, especially with something like this. This is a Mac Cass. You know, it's not an SCT, a Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope. It's a Maskatov Cassegrain. But this is a very small telescope. That's only 90 millimeters. And I've been able to see galaxies pretty much from in city limits, like M104, the Sombrero Galaxy. And the only reason that I was able to see that from the city that I could think of, because usually that's a pretty dim galaxy, is that the high magnification of the telescope, it increases the contrast. So it's more to do with how your brain perceives light than the performance of the telescope, and how smaller telescopes, although you lose resolution, you gain seeing. If you have a wavy atmosphere, a small telescope has the advantage of it doesn't pick up as many of the waviness of the light that's coming into it. And so you have an advantage there. So if you have a small telescope at a high magnification, because in the city, high magnification can increase contrast because it makes the sky, high magnification makes everything dimmer, but it makes the background blacker. So your objects can gain better contrast. And so yeah, so again, talking about Schmidt-Cassegrain telescopes here versus refractors. And although I really like refractors now, mainly because they're more portable, I guess, and I do more imaging now. So that was that question. Here, let me open the chat again. This is fun. Looking forward to seeing the sun. Just got a solar filter, but I haven't used it yet. Yeah, so there's two types. So I'm looking at the sun here in white light, but there's also hydrogen alpha. And this is what gives you the details on the surface of the sun, whether there's sunspots or not. So this is a Coronado PST. There's a new solar scope on the market that is now outperforming these, and people are using it for imaging. I forget off the top of my head who makes it, but it's about this. It's the same size. So this is 40 millimeters, and they're about $1,000. Although I buy everything used, so I got this for $250. But yeah, I forget what it's called. But people are getting amazing photos of the surface of the sun. Like, again, sunspots are not just like really details of the soupiness and sort of like oatmealness of the surface. I can see another note. My wife is texting me here that she wants to take a nap. I guess our kids are driving her nuts. Anyway, I better go. I'll give you 2 more minutes, and I'll go rescue my wife here. Let's see. Bring the chat back up. Yes, $250. But anyway, yeah. So they're connecting these to. Can't really see it back there. It's all on my imaging rig. To like ZWO cameras, and just getting insane images of the surface of the sun that look like sort of Nat Geo quality. I haven't had any success getting high definition videos or high definition images of the sun that I would share out of this telescope yet. I might try again. I've got the equipment. I just haven't had success with it. Even using the ZWO cameras and the ASI Air, I haven't been able to tone down the brightness enough to get a good image with the Coronado. Not sure what I'm doing wrong. But again, I haven't put too much time into that. The most success I've had is just doing this, just putting the iPhone up, an XYZ adapter, and no sun in there, and going from there. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this, my very first Learn to Stargaze live stream. I'll probably do this again. I should totally do this at night. A lot of fun. I love answering the comments. That is definitely the most fun to think. Oh, look at that. One last view of the sun. Of course, it's not in focus. Or maybe I'll manually focus it. There we go. There's that sunspot for you. Very cool. You can hear my kids back there fighting over the Xbox. They love Minecraft until they like kill each other's characters, and we keep turning off friendly fire, but they keep turning it back on. Anyway, Minecraft is our babysitter for when we go insane. Okay. Anyway, yeah, thanks everyone for joining. And again, I'm John from Learn to Stargaze, learntostargaze.com, author of the 50 Things to See with a Telescope series. Signing off.